Hello and welcome back to another episode on the Shack Podcast Network. My name is Ethan Frank, and today I am joined by the one and only Andrew Klein to discuss the return of Major League Baseball. Andrew, how are you on this Tuesday afternoon?
I'm tired.
Just being a brutally honest here, here at the OD Shack. So we're going to talk about the not really an agreement, but the quote unquote return of baseball based on the agreement from March 26th and the implementation of a 60 game season by Commissioner Rob Manfred. So as a baseball player, let's jump right in. So as a baseball player, what kind of effect do you think 3 weeks of preparation will have based on spring training is usually 5 or 6 weeks?
I think these guys will be fine. They're professionals. They're all working in their homes. There's been videos. Joey Gallo was literally taking hacks in his apartment. These guys are ready to go. They've been ready to go. You saw them all tweeting when and where. So I think that 3 weeks definitely going to be shorter, but they did already have some spring training before the shutdown. So I think these guys will be ready to go within 3 weeks, and we'll be ready for a great season as much as it can be.
Yeah, you mentioned players saying when and where. I've seen that all over social media, and it's something that I think they've been talking about for the last few weeks, but really didn't come to fruition until yesterday and today when there's actually dates set in stone. And the MLB season is going to be a lot different than the resumption of the NBA season and other sports that are going to be in a bubble environment. Teams are going to play in their home ballparks. They're going to be traveling across the country. How risky do you think this is, and can they pull it off?
Well, of course, it's definitely going to be worth the risk, but having a ton of NBA players in the same spot is worth pretty much a big risk as well. And now we're seeing guys like Nikola Jokic who tested positive for the virus, so that's definitely going to affect a league like the NBA. But I think it's really going to make it better for these players. They're going to be able to be home. A guy like Mike Trout who is having a child soon. It's his first kid. He definitely, I'm sure he doesn't want to be away from home for an entire season. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have played if baseball was in a set location. And this definitely allows all the players to, I think it better allows all the players to want to play and because they have the ability to be home and not just away from their families for this long period of time like the NBA.
Exactly, and I could see the Yankees pictures behind you. Do you think you'll be able to, if possibly there are crowds of 20% or 25% in the next few months, you would attend a Yankee game?
I think you can answer that question. Obviously, if there's any sort of crowd, I'm sure I'll be there, find a way. Um, my dad will definitely be willing to get tickets. Um, but I really don't think that there's going to be anybody in the stadiums until maybe the World Series, whenever that would be. But I really don't think it's going to happen with fans this year.
So it's usually a 162 game regular season, and now they're only going to be playing 60 games. And I've seen these things like the Pirates were half a game out of the playoffs last year after 60 games, but after the full season, they were in last place. So do you think 60 games is representative of a full season?
Oh, absolutely not. The Washington Nationals won the World Series. They were in fourth place. They were, 8, 9 games under 500 at the time. So we could, wouldn't be surprised if we saw a team struggle early on, maybe like the Nationals or even an Atlanta Braves team who I could see struggling early on, just sort of getting things together. And that could definitely affect the team because once you go under, 4 or 5 games under, it's really hard to get back up to 500 and then back up to the top of your division. So I definitely think that this is not really representative of a full season, but it's the best that they can do at this point.
I was listening to some stuff the other day, and they were saying that they think this will be the shorter game season will be much better for older pitchers, veteran pitchers in particular, like guys like Max Scherzer, who are in their 30s, Clayton Kershaw, who have a lot of miles on them, that they'll be a lot fresher than they would. And maybe teams go with 4-man rotations because you're only going to be playing 60 games. What kind of effect do you think that would have on standings and teams play?
Well, obviously it's gonna help everybody, especially older guys. Scherzer is so dominant, and for him to have to pitch less innings. That should definitely save him. Maybe add a couple years onto his career. He's one of the best pitchers I've ever seen, so that definitely excites me that I get to see more of him for the next couple years. So I think it's very different. It's going to have a big effect. It's every game is really going to be a must-win game at this point for all these guys. So I can see four-man rotations. Do I think that every team's going to implement them? Probably not.
And you have teams like the Rays who in the past have used an opener. Do you think they would still use this strategy in a 60-game season, or would they just go with a regular starting rotation?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely could see the opener still being worked. I think that it's a great strategy. It really worked well for the Yankees when they used it. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of teams went with that. Even more teams probably than usual, just to add another long reliever into the bullpen, which always helps. Especially going into the playoffs.
And what other different strategies do you think teams could take heading into a regular season of only 60 games? Are there good? I was seeing stuff there. Maybe there'll be expanded benches. So maybe you pinch hit more. You have guys come in to pinch run more often. What kind of changes do you think teams will make to adjust to the shortened season?
I mean, I don't know how many necessarily changes people are going to make. Obviously, the rosters are going to have to be deeper. Manfred's implementing a DH rule for every team, which personally I truly disappoint. I think it I just don't think it's a great look for baseball. Obviously, I'm not Rob Manfred. I don't have anything to do with actual
I don't think
baseball.
anyone wants to be Rob Manfred.
Well, if I could be commissioner, I would take that job and do it a little different. But I definitely think those will allow more young guys, possibly guys like Adley Rushman, who was probably going to be a minor leaguer the entire year this year in Baltimore. But I think he could definitely see major league action, especially because he's probably the best catcher on that roster. So I definitely think that younger guys might be pulled up quicker if teams think they're going to help them compete.
Yeah, you mentioned the DH in both leagues. That I think that would be a big help to a team like my New York Mets, where you have a guy like Yoenis Cespedes who could possibly, with all this time off, have gotten healthy and would look to contribute in a DH role, and then you get some more playing time for a guy like JD Davis who shined in his absence in left field last year. So I think teams like the Mets could benefit off of a DH coming in both leagues. But why do you is it because the DH has been entrenched in the AL for so long and that it really was a one league thing? Or are you against the DH entirely and you think all pitchers should hit in all leagues?
No, I think that, it's an American League thing. Obviously, it's only been around for, 30, 40 years, really not that long. If you look at the full lifespan of Major League Baseball. But I just think it's nice to have that authentic, old timey baseball feel that you get more, I guess, in the National League with the no DH rule. And I think it's fun. People want to watch their pitchers hit. When you go to a Mets game, you watch DeGrom pitch. Of course, you want to see him pitch, but he can hit a home run at any time. Even a guy like Madison Bumgarner, who
Right.
you come to the ballpark and you never know if he's going to hit a home run. There's a solid chance he does.
Another thing I was thinking of, so you have Mookie Betts, who's probably the second best player in all of Major League Baseball, was
No,
traded.
nope,
No?
nope.
Well, I know you're not a Mookie fan as he was on the Red Sox, but he's one of the five best players in all of Major League Baseball. Can you agree with
Not
that?
two. Not two. Yeah, no. He's top five, not two.
Okay. So he was traded to the Dodgers. What do you think his chances are of or any free agent to be of staying with the team they're in now or leaving because of a shortened season?
It depends how good they are. He as much as, I didn't like him in Boston, they were winning there for the most part when he was playing. I was a little surprised he wanted to leave, to be honest, but that team started to deteriorate and I understand. I think that Dodgers team is really special. They're by far the best team in baseball. They are best offense. They have arguably the best rotation in baseball. I can't see him leaving anytime soon.
Another thing I was thinking of is the whole, and not to take a light away from the pandemic, but the whole pandemic has taken away from everyone's hatred of the Houston Asterisks.
We're not talking about the Astros right now.
I
I
was just say
refuse to speak on their name.
you. what if we say asterisks? Does that work?
Same thing. I hope every single player gets beamed.
So, do you think that people will still be focused
Yeah,
on hating the
100%.
Astros?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think they might have lucked out though, because at every single ballpark they went to, they would have just been mercifully booed by all the fans. So with no fans, they might have a stroke of luck there.
People don't forget. They're going to get booed in 2021, 2022, all these years. These guys are going to get booed for a really, really long time.
Another thing, so I saw a tweet about potential rule changes for this season, and it says there could that extra innings in order to limit time of games would start with a runner on second base. What do you think about that?
So they did this in the World Baseball Classic. It's college baseball extra innings. I think it's the most exciting thing you can do. I actually love this rule. As much as I did talk about the authentic, baseball feel that you get, I think that this is something that's really interesting because it's going to be much harder. You're going to have to strategize the bullpen, who you want to come out of the bullpen. Obviously, they already made the rule change where a player has to face a three batter minimum. So you can't just bring in a lefty to face a lefty for one batter and then take him out. I think that it adds pressure, it adds excitement. I think that it's definitely going to be something fun for baseball fans to see, especially if it works. And it worked pretty well in the Baseball Classic.
So, for someone who, as myself, who didn't know, who was the runner that went to second base? Was it the leadoff hitter that inning, or was it someone from the bench?
I believe it was the. I don't know exactly what my best guess would be. Without it, would be the last out of the last inning.
Okay. And
The
when
last
you,
batted out.
yep, okay. And when you watched that, how much more exciting was the games? Because I know people around the world watch the World Baseball Classic, and that was something people were really hoping for next year, which isn't going to happen. But how much more exciting did that make the World Baseball Classic?
Well, it just makes it fun to, have that guy on second where immediately, you're thrown into this extra inning situation where there's a guy in scoring position. You want to see who's this clutch guy who's going to step it up rather than, needing multiple hits. One hit's going to probably do it with a lot of guys in baseball. So I think that it just immediately jumps right into extra innings, makes it exciting with having a guy on base.
Do you think that it's too much pressure on the pitcher to come in and immediately you have a guy on second base? Because a lot of pitchers usually like to come in and start a clean inning. You have no one on base. Your mind is focused on just getting the guy at the plate out. But now you have to worry about extracurricular circumstances that you had nothing to deal with. Do you think all pitchers are in the mindset that they can come in with guys on base? Because as of this moment, only a few guys in your bullpen do that on the regular.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, every one of these guys is gonna step up. They're gonna say, "I want to be the guy to get this out." You know, if they weren't confident like that, they wouldn't have made it this far.
So another thing I've seen is that pitchers can have a wet rag in their pocket as a substitute for licking their fingers. What kind of effect do you think that can have?
That's just gross. Like, I'm not gonna be walking around with a wet washcloth in my pocket. That's just disgusting. I mean, I don't. Obviously, you don't want people licking their fingers, but that's what. Why would somebody want to have a wet, rag in their back pocket? That's just uncomfortable. That's very uncomfortable to pitch with. That's
What does licking your fingers do for you? It,
so for some guys, it's just grip, different grip. It helps um, grip the balls a different way. Yeah, that's
okay.
really it.
Um, and another thing that could be proposed for this year was the possibility of expanded playoffs. As of right now, there are 10 teams that make the postseason, but there could have been expanded playoffs. Do you know how that was going to work, and what are your thoughts on that?
I actually don't know exactly how it was going to work. Maybe adding wildcard teams is my guess. I think that the playoffs are actually as good as they've been in a really long time. I think that the one wildcard game is really fun to watch. I've actually been to it a couple of times. The Yankees have played in it. The past couple of years, I've been going, and it's definitely a really exciting game to watch and be a part of. So I don't think adding more teams will do much for baseball. And at this point, the wild card game has been really successful. Why change what's working?
Yep. And another thing I think was I read I think they were talking about it months ago, maybe January, February, was the possibility I think for expanded playoffs in the next few years was of like the number one seed in each league picking their opponent. I don't know if you remember hearing about that, but doing like a March Madness style selection show where the teams actually got to pick their opponent. If that happened, would you, because I think that is the furthest thing from authenticity of the game, which is something you were talking about before, would you be against that?
Oh, absolutely. That's just sounds like a terrible idea. You why? What good does it have in letting a team pick their opponent? What just let it go the
It's
way it
a
is.
reward for finishing first.
But your reward is you're already playing the lowest seed playoff team.
Or so say there are seven postseason teams in each league, which I think was something that was discussed, and you match up better with the team that finished in sixth place rather than the team that finished in seventh place. I think would be the argument.
But it's baseball. It's not a matter of matching up. It's not a matter of the a team like the Houston Rockets not wanting to play a bigger team like the Lakers or something like that.
Yep.
It's baseball. It's you got to pitch and you got to get the guy out and you got to hit the ball. There's no real matching up. It's any team could be any team at any time.
I think the biggest question I still have about this season is, are players and teams just going to be staying in regular hotels like normal? And when they travel on the road, is it going to be business as usual, or are things going to be different? And I'm just interested to see how the league handles their players when they're on the road. Are they going to be locked up in their hotel, not allowed to leave? Are they going to be free to roam around? I think those are the biggest questions I still have left to see. And when those health protocols are released, I'll be very interested to read them.
Yeah, that's probably my best guess is that they're gonna keep the guys in the hotel when they move around. But um, definitely one of the big things was that these guys don't want to leave their families. It's a big reason a lot of NBA players are not wanting to play. They don't want to leave their families, that their children and stuff like that. So I think that locking players up in the hotels when they're on the road, that's about as best as you can do in terms of stopping guys from roaming around.
Let me ask you, have you watched any of the KBO or the Japanese leagues that have started up with no fans?
No, I haven't been into that at all. I don't know any of the guys, so I don't see any good in watching.
But I think I think the coaches or the training staff wears masks in the dugout. Do you think that would be something that Major League Baseball could use, and having guys sit further apart, maybe behind the dugout, or stand apart in the dugout as a way to possibly limit their exposure to one another?
Yeah, I think the masks is definitely a good idea for the coaches. I think that it's something pretty simple that all the coaches will be able to do. I also heard that they might have players sit in the stands, 6 feet away from each other. I don't know what they're going to implement, but I think that's something a little weird. I think these guys are all with each other every day. They're going to be with each other, practicing with each other in hotels. So it may not be as
Yeah.
big of a deal as you know something else.
What do you think the biggest effect is on a roster if you increase roster size? Usually have a 25-man roster. I think if things played out normally, they were increasing that by one this year. If they say rosters can be 30 guys, we usually see expanded rosters in September and you have unlimited bench players. Let's say you increase to 30 or increase up to 35. What kind of effect does that have on the game?
You're just going to have more players sitting there on the bench doing nothing. It's 60 games. Pretty much every game is going to be an important must-win game. You want to have your best nine out there as much as you can. So just increasing guys, it'll help. I think bullpen numbers. I think that would be the best thing for it. But keeping a bunch of guys on the bench really does them no good. They're not going to develop at all. They're kind of just going to be sitting there watching, especially young guys who you wouldn't really expect to play. A team like the Yankees are, if they call up young guys, they're probably, the odds of them really getting big playing time is not very high with the studs they have right there.
Exactly. And one last thing that I saw. So I think the biggest thing for players in the negotiations was the number of games and their salaries. And so 60 games, I think, is not ideal and what they wanted, as they rejected every proposal by the owners. But it looks like they're going to get their full prorated salary, which equates to about 37% over a full season, as long as these 60 games are completed. So what percentage chance would you put that the 60 games are completed and we do see a full playoffs?
Right now, you really still don't know. If you look at the NBA, a lot of these guys are starting to back out. Guys are testing positive. Nikola Jokic, really the big name that kind of stood out to me today. You really never know. One guy could get the virus. You've already seen guys like in the Phillies organization get it, which could end up, cutting baseball season short, cutting it off completely. So I would say there's probably, around a 55-45 chance at this point.
All right. And also I think so teams like the Mets and the Yankees move their spring training, that they're going to do their spring training sites in New York, because we've seen cases of the virus increase significantly in Florida and other states like Texas and Arizona. And these states of Texas and Florida both have multiple teams each. So if things continue to worsen in these states, do you think it's possible that those teams move and play out of their respective home stadiums, because the situation there is much, much different than it is here up north in New York and the Northeast?
If I'm going to be totally honest, I think that they would just cut the season off if it gets too bad in certain locations. You obviously you can't play a season that is not going to include a couple of teams. You also, the odds of you really playing a season where these teams are moved around, players are not going to want to do that. Fans are not going to be happy about that. And where are they really supposed to go? It's not like they have a second home that they can go to. It's really not as easy as.
I know our second home.
Of course. I was there today. But yeah, it's really not as easy as people might think, to just kind of tell this team to pack your stuff up and you're going to go play in another state for the year.
Mm-hmm. Are there any final thoughts you have or anything you want to discuss before we sign off for this edition on the Shack Podcast Network?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, baseball is coming back. Players will hopefully, barring no snags in any more negotiations, come back to train on July 1st. Andrew, thank you very much. This was a great discussion, and I'm sure we'll have some more in the future.
Yep, and everybody out there, be sure to check out my few articles on how I thought the baseball season would pan out if it was full length. Obviously, not going to be full length, but predictions remain the same. I still got the same ideas as of right now.
Yep, everyone go check out and read everything on theodshack.com. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.